Welcome back. The US is going to sell gold and buy $600 billion in Bitcoin. This is what the Pantera Capital CEO is stating to a conference here. And we're going to be going over this video along with many others, kind of going on where we are in the cycle, because I believe we are in the final stages of the bull run. And if you even don't believe that, and you say, Cryptoviser, you don't know what you're talking about, we're not at the peak of the bull run, we're not at the top of the bull run. Well, just think about it this way. If you at least understand that after a bull run or a bull market, you have a bear market or a bear run, what comes after the top of the market? The top of the market, then we start to rotate into a bear market. And so it doesn't matter whether we are at the top or not. What matters is the further we go, the closer we are. So the further we go, the closer we are to the top of the market, and the further we go, the closer we are to the bear market. And so in today's video, we're going to be breaking it all down. We're going to be breaking down analysis like this guy on X, BitPain, says we aren't at the blue circle, we're at the red circle, and shows a historical context of Bitcoin pricing over the last 5 years. And you can see he's circling the red circle back in 2020, which is effectively right after the Bitcoin halving in 2020. The blue circle is about 18 months after the Bitcoin halving. He's circling the red in this cycle now that we're about 12 or 13 months after the Bitcoin halving that occurred in 2024, and stating that we're actually where we should have been a year ago. And that is just not historically accurate. And in my view, not where the market is. So let's break it all down. Let's understand what are the signals that we are at the top of the market, what this means for you, your portfolio, and most importantly, what the sentiment is. Because to me, it doesn't matter that everybody's super bullish, that everybody's, MicroStrategy's buying, Michael Saylor's buying, GameStop is buying, all these different companies are buying. These could be indicators that we're at the top of the market. So let's get into it. Don't forget to give this video a free thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, that way you never miss a new video. We upload almost every single day to bring you the latest happening in the financial world. These are just my opinions. You could agree or disagree, but let's get into some of the context and look at some of the data and also watch some videos. So we're going to be starting right here with what I just showed you, BitPain's chart. And I'm seeing this a lot. I just pulled this up because this came up on my feed. But here's the deal. We are in 12 to 18 month time frame after the Bitcoin halving occurred in 2024. We're in that time frame. The blue circle is at the top of the market back in 2021, which was 18 months after the Bitcoin halving in 2020. And so to allude that we are at the red circle, which is right after the Bitcoin halving, based on historical halving context, this is just not valid and not accurate. And Marty Party even posted this basically in the middle of May 2025, saying the Wyckoff, and we're going to get into what Wyckoff is. The Wyckoff indicator says that spring was April 6th and that the markup is June 7th. These narratives available to use are the Genius Act passing the Senate, or quantitative tightening ending officially, or quantitative easing announced, and or a drop in interest rates on emergency meeting announcement. And basically what Marty Party is saying here is what potential timelines are and how we're going to get to those timelines. Because basically the markets are all narrative driven. If everybody is hearing Michael Saylor's buying, Michael Saylor's buying, Michael Saylor's buying, everybody's bullish. But when we hear no major companies are buying, people start to become bullish very rapidly. And so what is going to push up the geoeconomic conditions? Because it's not just crypto. Stocks have also been under a lot of pressure in the first half of 2025. And so they're talking about the Genius Act. This includes no tax on tips and potentially stable coin provisions in there. And if this passes, this could be very bullish for the markets. Quantitative tightening ending, right? Maybe we're going to hear from the Federal Reserve that they're going to stop lowering their balance sheets, stop selling some things from their own balance sheet. And maybe they'll also announce quantitative easing, which we kind of already are starting to see signals and signs that the Federal Reserve is already easing, whether they're telling us they are or not. But Marty Party continues saying the whales will execute the markup and the narratives will be used to rationalize it. Price makes narratives, whales make the price, whales control the narrative, follow the whales. Now, this is according to what Marty Party is saying, but let's understand a little bit more about what he's talking about with the Wyckoff method. Now, according to Investopedia, legendary technician Richard Wyckoff wrote about financial markets in the early decades of the 20th century, and he started to make observations on price action coalescing into what's known as the Wyckoff market cycle. It's a theory that outlines key elements in price trend developments that are marked by periods of accumulation and distribution. Four distinct phases comprise the cycle, which are accumulation, markup, distribution, and markdown. Wyckoff also defined rules to use in conjunction with these phases. Now, we're not going to go into all of them, right? But generally speaking, what is the Wyckoff market cycle? Basically, it's based on observations of supply and demand, and that the prices of securities, or in this case, crypto, move in a cyclical pattern of four distinct phases. Investors and traders use this cycle to identify a market's direction, the likelihood of a reversal, and when large investors are accumulating and selling positions. The Wyckoff market cycle phases are accumulation, markup, distribution, and markdown. Generally speaking, the accumulation phase forms as institutional investors increase their buying and drive demand. This is what we are seeing, right? Just today, where is it? I have another tweet up. Yeah, Metaplanet bought another 1,000 Bitcoin, lifting their holdings to over $800 million worth of Bitcoin. Their total Bitcoin is about $7,800, right? And Metaplanet, look at their stock year to date. It's gone up from effectively $2 to where we are today at $4. And this is again in the OTC markets. If you look at the yen, in the Japanese markets, it's done significantly more. I think something like 10, 20, or 30x. We're also hearing that MicroStrategy just purchased more Bitcoin, right? $765 million worth. They bought 7,390. And so MicroStrategy keeps buying and buying and buying and buying. And as we've discussed, there's obviously a lot of risk there. But when we're talking about the Wyckoff method, this is accumulation, right? Institutions are buying Bitcoin. As more interest develops, the trading range displays higher lows as the price position themselves to move higher. We're starting to see that already, right? Every time we dip, we're getting higher dips. So the dips don't go as far down as we've seen, at least not yet. So they continue on. With the buyers gaining power, prices push through the upper level of the trading range. At this markup phase, a chart will show consistent upward trend. And so this is what Marty Party is basically stating, that April 6th was the spring, kind of the beginning of it, and that markup is going to be June or in or around June 7th, right? Remember, we're going to be hearing from the Federal Reserve soon. We're going to be hearing about, what the Senate is going to be doing from a budget perspective and spending perspective. This could effectively mean what the money printing is going to look like outside of the Federal Reserve. And so the markup period is when the prices are going higher because you have all this institutional buying. This is the exit liquidity. This is the generational, let me rephrase that, the wealth transfer. The wealth transfer is occurring the same time the prices are going higher. At the same time, the market is getting ready to start distribution. In the distribution phase, sellers are trying to gain the upper hand. The horizontal trading range in this phase will display lower price tops and a lack of higher bottoms. The markdown phase is a time of greater selling. It's confirmed when price breaks below the established lows of the trading range. Once the fourth and final phase of Wyckoff market cycle finishes, the entire cycle will repeat itself. Now, when will it repeat itself? Like, will it fully correct? I don't know. We have to kind of look for that. But what I'm looking at is, this whole extended cycle conversation. In my view, we are already, according to also what Marty Party is stating, we're already in the markup phase, right? And these things don't happen over the course of like years. These things are happening very rapidly. And when the institutions are buying, that is the money to exit the market. That is the exit liquidity, because a lot of these companies or funds or whatever, they're only making one-time purchases. They're not doing what MetaPlanet and MicroStrategy are doing. And Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy thesis that it's just going to endless money. In some ways, it could work, but in other ways, there's huge issues, right? Especially that MicroStrategy is trading at a premium to their underlying Bitcoin. And the fact that the underlying Bitcoin is not really per share because creditors get first in line and shareholders are last in line to get access to that Bitcoin if the company were to go bankrupt. And so that kind of leaves us in a situation where everybody's bullish about MicroStrategy buying, but they're buying with debt, and debt is leverage, and leverage is usually what creates the transition from the bull market to the bear market. Guys, we saw this in the previous cycle, and people are not remembering what happened with FTX, BlockFi, 3 Hours Capital, Celsius, Terra Luna. And all of that was started in the first half of the year. The second half of the year is when we saw the cratering based on the FTX collapse, and they were the last to go. So we're seeing the stages playing out here. Now, when we're going to have distribution, when we're going to have a markdown, when we're going to the bear market, I don't know. I don't know the exact dates. But Yield Sage responded to Marty Party's tweet and said, everyone wants the narrative. Few watch the tape, right? The ticker tape, what's going on in the markets. Almost no one tracks the whales. The Wyckoff logic makes sense. Price leads, not lags. And so basically the price movement that we're seeing now is telling us the institutions are buying. It's telling us there's a lot of liquidity entering the system. By the time most people realize that and hear it in the media, on social media, whatever, it's usually too late, right? I'm going to give you a perfect example. Last year on this channel, I talked about Misty a lot, MSTY. This is basically an ETF that sells covered call options on MicroStrategy and then takes the earnings that they make from those covered call options and distributes it to their shareholders. Now, I was talking about this effectively over a year ago. Completely exited most of my YieldMax positions at the end of last year, early this year, because it seemed like it was too good to be true overall. And now this is all I see people talking about. Oh, I should just, clear out my 401k, clear out my retirement account and put it into YieldMax because I'll make money forever. And it's like, wait, this trade was the trade a year ago. It may still be the trade right now, but if everybody knows about it, it's not the trade anymore. It's actually the time to get out. Because if people are so bullish that they can't even see a downside risk of taking their entire 401k out, I mean, it's not good, because the smart money, they're going to start exiting, right? And they probably already have, potentially. And smart money also has a lot more money to lose than the everyday person. And so I look at YieldMax as, yes, this could make you pretty good income, but it also has significant NAV erosion. While the price of MicroStrategy has gone up significantly over the last year, you can see that Misty has not. And so Misty has actually gone down. You would have made more money if you just held MicroStrategy directly. You can see the MicroStrategy is up $3,200. This is on the 5-year. Let me pull up, let's pull up the 1 year. So you can see MicroStrategy is up 134% and YieldMax is down 34%. And you could say, yeah, but I made 60% of my money, but you're also getting taxed on that income. So you're not really making 60%, you're making maybe 30 or 40% on your income. And the price of YieldMax has gone down 40%. So you made 40% and you lost 40% at the same time. So that doesn't equal anything. And if we do go into a bear market and MicroStrategy does go down, this is going to yield literally nothing, and probably the price is going to go down substantially. And so potentially you could lose your entire portfolio if you put your whole portfolio into it just to get those dividends. And so the fact that nobody's looking at the risk at that tells me, yeah, we're probably close to the top, and I don't want to be in that asset while everybody's extremely bullish and doesn't see any risk in it. This is what is going on with MicroStrategy. And so back to what Yield Sage stated in response to the Marty Party post. So he said, everyone watch the narratives, few watch the tape, no one tracks the whales. The Lyckoff logic makes sense that the price leads and doesn't lag. But here's the part most miss. Narratives are not false, they're just late. By the time CNBC explains it, whales have already sold to you. If you're still waiting for confirmation from news headlines, you'll always be the exit liquidity. And this is what we just talked about the other day. I made a video about the extended cycle, and I think that you guys need to watch it if you haven't. Just go to youtube.com/the Cryptoviser, click on the videos tab, and then you can just click search, or if you're recent, you can look over here. Where are we? Yeah, don't fall for it. The extended cycle is not happening. I would definitely recommend watching this video. Look, a lot of people didn't even watch it. And effectively, this is what we talk about in that video. Like, are you expecting this extended cycle to occur where one day the person who told you about the extended cycle comes out and says, hey guys, tomorrow morning, everybody's going to wake up at 9 a.m. Everybody's going to go very orderly and very calmly. Everybody's going to go onto their crypto exchange and everybody's going to sell at the same time on the same day. That way we can all hit the top of the market at the extended cycle. It's nonsense, guys. It's bullshit. It's complete and utter nonsense. And so, yeah, if you're waiting for somebody to tell you we are at the top of the market, it's already going to be way after the top of the market. I'm letting you guys know that. And so we have to be ahead, right? The price is ahead of the narrative, right? We're talking about AI cryptos on this channel. AI cryptos haven't even picked up. We talk about MSTY last year on this channel. It took a year for people in the MicroStrategy ecosystem to learn about Misty and start investing in it. In my view, once they start talking about it and investing in it, it's too late. It's too late. I did video after video on YieldMax last year. Nobody was interested. Nobody wanted to invest in it or talk about it. And so that told me it was probably a safe investment at the time. Now everybody's talking about it. Yep, that's the exit liquidity. And so you have to be before the exit liquidity. The exit liquidity is here right now. The institutions are buying. When the institutions either slow down their buying or stop their buying, even if they just do it for a year, let's say MicroStrategy says we're not buying for a year. What is that going to do to your portfolio? And what if you need to sell and everybody else needs to sell, but nobody's buying on the other end? You don't have a Michael Saylor buying the market. And so then what happens? The market starts dropping rapidly. And so, yeah, we need to watch liquidity flows. Liquidity is coming in right now. Track large wallets. We're seeing large wallets. They've been accumulating over the last few months. By the time we see the headlines, accumulation, it's going to be another month. So that lagged by 2-3 months. Study the funding rates and observe behavior, not headlines. So we were just talking about. Everybody's like, I'm going to dump my entire paycheck into Misty because I can just make 10% every single month. And it's like, yeah, until you don't. And then when you don't and everybody's running for the door and trying to sell, well, then the price of this goes down substantially. And as the price of that goes down substantially, not only are you not making dividends, but you're also losing your NAV. So most people are probably spending the income that they have or reinvesting it into YieldMax to get more. Guys, effectively, the trade only works as long as the trade works. And going back to Wyckoff, these work in cyclical patterns. We just don't know the time frame between the cycles. Right, a bear market could be very, very long or it could be very, very short. It really depends on what the narrative is and how much people understand what is going on. And so that leads us to the question, is something about to pop? Is something about to go down in the markets from a very positive perspective? Because everything we just talked about is telling me that we are close to the top of the market. So if we're close to the top of the market, what are some things that are going to push us over the edge, right? Well, we just talked about MetaPlanet and MicroStrategy, but we're also hearing Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund revealed $408 million of an investment in BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF. And so they are using some of these products to get into Bitcoin without getting into Bitcoin directly. Maybe they also own Bitcoin directly, maybe not. We've also talked about companies that are holding MicroStrategy, right? And so for everyone wondering, yes, Strategy buys up to 200 million worth of Bitcoin in 1 hour without moving the price, possible only with Bitcoin because it's the largest liquid and global market on earth. And by the way, a lot of people have been asking me, Cryptoviser, how is Strategy buying all these Bitcoins? How are the Bitcoin ETFs buying all this Bitcoin and there's no movement in price? Well, some people have been asking for proof of reserves from MicroStrategy to show that they actually own the Bitcoin. Whether they do or don't, I'm guessing that they probably do have the Bitcoin. But how are they moving these? How are they buying these coins without moving the price? Well, first of all, the price has moved. It may not move as high as you wanted it to move, right? But the price has moved based on MicroStrategy purchases. Like that's clear. But it hasn't moved, I think, as much as most people, including myself, have anticipated. And I wonder why, right? Where is the liquidity coming from? Well, we know some of the liquidity is from early investors. And now that it's like regulatorily okay to buy Bitcoin and sell Bitcoin and use exchanges, a lot of early investors or early Bitcoin miners or developers, they're starting to slowly cash out, right? So that's a lot of liquidity, right? Because some of these people have potentially tens of thousands of Bitcoin that they mine over the course of time, and they haven't sold a lot of it. And so little by little, we're starting to see trickle. We're also seeing trickle from probably FTX. We saw some trickle from Grayscale over the last few years. And so there is a lot of liquidity, but at some point, the liquidity is going to dry up, right? I would guess also like Brian Armstrong is probably on the other end of that, right? He probably owns a lot of Bitcoin, right, from very early stages. And so some people theorize that MicroStrategy purchases are off chain. But the fact that the market isn't moving does show that the market is liquid. But it also is telling me that people are dumping their coins and they're taking that exit liquidity. Whether it's you or an early investor, I don't know. But somebody who is in for like $1 or $10 or $100, now they're selling one coin at $100,000. They don't care. Like they don't care that it's going to a million, right? They've done very, very well. And so multiply that by thousands or hundreds of coins, this is pretty big. And so we're seeing all of these institutions buying. We even just heard recently, by the way, Fifth Third Bank Corp. Why don't they just call it Fifth or Third? What is Fifth Third? Anyway, Fifth Third Bank Corp bolsters their crypto strategy as regulatory guidelines become clearer. We just heard from the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, the OCC. This is the regulator of the bank just a few days ago, that banks could custody crypto. And with over 200 billion in assets and primary oversight from this regulator, this Fifth Third Bank is set to potentially deepen its involvement in the crypto sector. The strategic pivot marks a significant step for this institution. According to their chief strategy officer, the bank began building relationship with crypto firms 5 years ago, but adopted a conservative approach. The clarity they now have has emerged, particularly under these policies. And so the bank's strategy centers on applications of digital assets with particular emphasis on stable coins, right? All goes back to stable coins. And so this is a bank that's now getting involved in crypto and blockchain. Why? Well, it's cheaper, it's faster, it's more efficient, it's the future. And remember, the banks that don't get with the program, they're going extinct, according to the Trump, I think Trump Jr. But we're also seeing billionaires still holding, still buying. Billionaire Tim Draper says he owns 30,000 Bitcoin, but that he's still buying more. And he believes in 10 years, Bitcoin will be the largest money in the world. And so keep in mind, a lot of people are positioning themselves now, right? So these coins are being purchased either on a regular basis or just in chunks, and they're being put in cold storage for probably a very long time because these big money people, they take a small portion of their portfolio, which could be billions, and put it into Bitcoin, don't touch it for 5, 10 years, right? This guarantees their generational wealth, where most people are just trying to figure out how they're going to pay for their groceries or how they're going to buy that birthday cake for their child when they're paycheck to paycheck, right? And this is the big difference between everyday people and the big money. You cannot rely on a billionaire to bail you out, right? And that's what a lot of people do. They're like, but Michael Saylor's buying. It's like he doesn't even know who you are, right? He's not doing this for your portfolio. He's not doing this for your bag, right? Does he have an obligation to the shareholder? Yeah, but he's also thinking on a much larger and longer time horizon. And so you may be in the negative for 5, 10 years. He doesn't care because his goal is to acquire Bitcoin. That's it. It's not to eat. Like, when have you heard him say, I'm buying Bitcoin so that you can become rich? I'm buying Bitcoin so you can change your life. It has nothing to do with you. And so this is where, again, people get tribal. People get, well, I love MicroStrategy. I'm 100% in. I love this crypto. I'm 100% in. And they miss the bigger picture. They miss the point. Michael Saylor is, yes, he can't, what he's doing can make you rich. But if you don't sell and you don't see the risk and you don't see how the cyclical moves in the market are occurring, you're not going to be able to benefit from that. He's putting billions of dollars into the market. If you're not going to exit at any point during this cycle, we can't be mad in a bear market because he's giving the liquidity, right? And who's buying it? The billionaires. The billionaires are still buying. Let's listen to what Tim Draper says. By the way, he has quite the eyebrows.
You've predicted that Bitcoin will be worth 250,000 by the end of 2025. You know, it got me thinking, how much Bitcoin do you now own? Because we know that you bought 30,000 Bitcoin seized from the Silk Road in 2014. Forbes says your net worth is 2.9 billion. I don't know. I'm sure you've spent some of that Bitcoin on investments, but I mean, 30,000 Bitcoin is worth about
get to
3
the
billion
point.
today. Are you okay with clarifying or disclosing how much Bitcoin you own? And is Forbes right about your net worth?
I just keep buying more.
You've predicted.
That was the longest question in the world. But yeah, he's buying more. He owns 30,000. He didn't deny it. Maybe it's a little over, but you know, he's still buying. The billionaires are buying. And this potentially is going to be the catalyst for a potential move to the major upside. We've been hearing rumblings about a revaluation of gold. We've been hearing rumblings about selling gold. We've been hearing rumblings about buying Bitcoin. What I'm about to lay out right here is probably the most important part of this video that you guys understand and pay attention to, because no other YouTuber is putting these things together like this. And in my view, although I do believe we are close to the top of the market, this could push us much higher for much longer. Now, whether we go into this extended cycle or not, I don't know. But I'm just here to analyze and provide you guys my analysis. So let's listen to billionaire and Pantera Capital CEO. This was at Dubai Token 2049 conference, and he talks about revaluing gold. Let's listen in. And by the way, if you're up to this point in the video, don't forget to give the video a free thumbs up. We got a lot of new viewers, but a lot of you guys are not subscribed to the channel, so make sure you guys are subscribed. Leave your comments down below. But the most important thing, it's free to do, is give the video a thumbs up. Let's get right into this video.
U.S. has 11 million years of workers' wages buried in a stone pyramid in Kentucky in gold. That's obviously very antiquated. That's what the pharaohs did 40 centuries ago. I think that'll be transferred into crypto, Bitcoin, over the next few years. US.
And by the way, he's not the only one who has been alluding to this fact. On the screen, it says digital gold replacing old school gold. Bitcoin ETF inflows since launch have exceeded gold ETFs over the same period. You can see that on the chart right here. This is Bitcoin, this is gold. Gold production can be increased to meet demand, whereas production schedule for now, Bitcoin is fixed. And Bitcoin is being widely discussed as a gold alternative. The US now has a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And remember just a few months ago, Doge was talking about potentially going to Fort Knox and auditing the gold, and haven't heard anything about that since. So do they even have the gold, right? This is a big difference, right? Because proof of reserves you can show in crypto, you can show your wallet. And this is what a lot of people are asking MicroStrategy to do. Show the wallet. Why they don't, I don't know, but they don't. And so we're not seeing the gold wallet effectively. It's very hard. It would be very hard to audit, right? Billions of dollars of gold. And so do we really have it? And if we don't have the gold, if the gold was used for other things or whatever, well, the only solution is to revalue gold and get out of the gold, right? That's the only way to do it. Now, whether they have the gold or not, whether they're going to revalue the gold or not, I don't know. But it's a possibility, right? It is definitely a possibility. And I'm going to skip to something else. Yeah, I'm going to skip over here for a quick second because I wanted to show you guys this. And this kind of has to do with what we just talked about. Cantor Fitzgerald has now announced new generation of ownership. Remember, Howard Lutnick, he is the current Secretary of the Commerce for the U.S. He owns this hedge fund called Cantor Fitzgerald, which is heavy in crypto. So heavy in crypto, in fact, that half of their portfolio is MicroStrategy. Where does it show just their holdings? Okay, right here. 27.78 I'm guessing this is $1 billion or million 27. Yeah, I actually don't even know what I'm looking at here. But I thought this was their portfolio. I thought they had, oh yeah, it is right here. I'm like, what am I looking at? Anyway, so you can see here where MicroStrategy they're buying more, right? Basically, I don't know why it's not showing it here. I thought it was up. Maybe I had two websites and I closed one. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They have about 50% of their portfolio in MicroStrategy, right? And if it's not 50%, it's a lot. It's close to 50%. And so my question was like, why are they in MicroStrategy? Howard Lutnick is the Commerce Secretary, and now we're seeing new ownership. Now, I would imagine a lot of this has to do with Howard Lutnick trying to distance himself from the fund because of his position in the government. But why wouldn't he have done this already? The fact that he's doing it now, to me, says he doesn't want there to be any conflict of interest with what MicroStrategy is doing or any of this Bitcoin stuff that Cantor Fitzgerald is invested in if we go much higher. Because what will the media say? Oh, that Secretary of Commerce is trying to make billions of dollars on the backs of Americans, especially if we do go into a bear market afterwards, right? That's what it will be. So he's distancing himself, and Cantor Fitzgerald is changing ownership structure so that he is kind of no longer a controlling partner and interest in it, which is very, very interesting that he's doing that now, especially with such large holdings of Bitcoin denominated products in the portfolio. And so that, combined with what Pantera Capital CEO is saying, why would a major bank or hedge fund or financial firm say that the US is going to convert the gold into Bitcoin if he didn't know this was going to happen? I think that he knows it's going to happen, and that's why I think he's saying it. And this kind of goes in line with everything else that we've been seeing and hearing, and the fact that Howard Lutnick is moving away from Cantor Fitzgerald, so there's no conflict of interest there. And the fact that he's talked about the U.S. buying gold in a budget neutral type of way, or in a budget neutral type of way, where it's not like taking your tax dollars to go buy Bitcoin. And so if they take gold or the gold reserves to buy Bitcoin, this could be huge, guys. This could be really, really big. And so these are just indicators of where we are in the cycle. And so we have to take all these indicators and say, okay, what is happening here? Like, what is going to be that switch where we see banana zone potentially? And maybe we don't see it this cycle, banana zone, basically the price just going parabolically higher, because we really have not seen parabolic moves. I mean, even the Trump pump after the election, we went from a low of 53,000 to over 100,000. That's only a 100% increase. Now, that is still a very big number, but people in crypto are expecting like 10x's in most cryptos, and most cryptos have not performed that way. There's a few that have, but most have not. And so this could be kind of a slow like adoption of this new technology. Like, public companies have to say what they're investing in. Private companies don't. So maybe we're seeing a lot of private companies slowly getting into crypto without notifying anybody. Potentially we have other companies preparing to start investing in other companies. One of the things that I've talked about is, we see pension funds and retirement funds investing in MicroStrategy They're not investing in Bitcoin Direct or Bitcoin ETFs. They're investing in MicroStrategy. And so this cycle, potentially MicroStrategy is the risk because they're doing so many things all at once from a financial standpoint that people don't fully get it. This is the same thing that FTX did. Now, FTX was doing things like, I don't think that they realized while they were doing it, like what they were doing in terms of like losing everything, because most of FTX was in the bull market, right? The collapse started to occur in the bear market, the very early stages of the bear market, by the way, because at the beginning of 22, that's when we saw Terra Luna, Celsius, Voyager, 3 Hours Capital. They started to go down. FTX was the last one. FTX was the biggest one. That's why they were able to stay solvent the longest. But now you have MicroStrategy doing very similar things. And while I don't think MicroStrategy will, like, quote unquote, go under, the stock price will come back to earth at some point and potentially go into a negative premium, the same way that we saw Grayscale products going into negative premiums. Because you can't take a MicroStrategy share and bring it to Michael Saylor and say, give me my Bitcoin. That's not how it works. So people could sell this down to $5 and your underlying Bitcoin, and by the way, MicroStrategy still has over 500,000 Bitcoin, and the price of the stock could be $5 because nobody wants to buy the stock because it's just based on full debt. That is a potential. People are not looking at it there where they're like, no, this is never going to go under what the Bitcoin is worth. And it's like, yes, it can. And the more people that say it can't, the more people that make me want to do what Jim Chanos is doing and short it. Now, generally speaking, I don't like shorting stocks. I don't like shorting the market. But the sentiment tells me that, yeah, we could have a major pop in the market. We can go double, triple price from here in MicroStrategy and Bitcoin and other cryptos. And at that point, if you even mention the word bear market, people are they're just gonna downvote your video, tell you you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about. But in my view, that's the indicator that you are at the top of the market, that we are going into a bear market, because people can't see it. The same way in a bear market, people can't see the uptrend. I tell you guys all the time, I have friends that will call me, never hear from them. They will call me at the top of the market, right? They don't know. I don't know it's at the top of the market, but now I do, because when I get that call, I'll never hear from the person. They're like, wait, how do I buy Bitcoin? Should I buy Bitcoin? I'm like, wait, you're buying now at $100,000+. Why didn't you buy at 50,000? Oh, because I didn't think we were going to go higher. It's like, yeah, but now we went higher and now you want to buy. So what if we go lower? You're going to be pissed and you're going to say, well, this didn't work out, right? But that is how a lot of people think about the markets. So they're not thinking about the bull in the bear, and they're not thinking about the bear in the bull. And if we learn anything from Warren Buffett, he says, be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy. People are greedy right now, so I'm fearful, right? That's how the market works. And it kind of goes back into what we were talking about at the beginning of the video with the Wyckoff cyclical patterns that we're seeing in the market that can bring us to the next level. Anyway, we're also hearing from former PayPal president David Marcus saying that Bitcoin will underpin a new global financial system. So I want you guys to think about this. All of these major investors and inventors and early executives at a lot of these companies, they're all talking about the same thing and wanting to move into the direction of the same thing, with the president and his administration saying the same thing about the global financial system, stablecoin, crypto, integration, decentralized finance, all becoming part of one. And there's people who think that it's not going to happen. And some of these people who think it's not going to happen are still investing in this technology while telling you not to. It's quite incredible. It really is. Let's listen to what he says.
Big banks, legacy payment systems, SWIFT, watch out.
I mean, I think, look, you need to build the best tool, right? No one is sending faxes after the internet. So, the current version of the money networks are like the fax or even telex of, our age. And if you have a better thing that's actually really truly moving money to the place you want and taking it from the place you want globally, then yeah, it's like old networks are not going to be around.
If you get this right, what does Lightspark look like by 2030?
So this is his own company. I think it's a lightning network or a payment system. But guys, we're seeing the banks involved. We just talked about a bank getting more involved in crypto. JP Morgan just processed their first DeFi transaction on Ondo Finance. I don't think it's actually their first DeFi transaction, but I think it's the first on Ondo or cross-chain compatible transaction, whatever. They did something on DeFi. We have all these companies that are saying they're going to start investing in crypto. Like this, I don't see how it's not going to happen. Maybe it'll take longer than most people expect, but crypto is going to be integrated, period. The banks don't like it. Oh, well, JP Morgan, you guys are getting involved. You created your own blockchain. You created your own crypto coin, but everything else is bullshit, right? And they really think people believe what they say. Like, what person under the age of 40 years old is listening to Jamie Dimon and saying, yeah, you know what? He's completely correct. Bitcoin is nonsense. When we have literally gone up for forever, the entire history of Bitcoin, anybody who is saying anything against it has been wrong 100% of the time. Why would you listen to somebody who is wrong 100% of the time? I don't get it. I really don't. I don't get it. At least do your own research and come up with your own thesis that, oh no, this is not a good asset. But just to listen to somebody who's been up to date 100% incorrect, the gold bugs. Gold is a better asset than Bitcoin. It's like, what? Bitcoin has outperformed gold every single year since it began its existence. And so why would I ever listen to a gold bug again? And this is why we're starting to see the revalue. By the way, if they do revalue gold and sell gold to buy Bitcoin, oh boy, not just in this market, but in the gold and silver and all these precious metals that people have been acquiring for years and years and years, and the price hasn't moved up. Guess what? The price is going to go significantly lower, and they're going to lose out on their investments. This is why you have to make moves in the market when the market is telling you to, when you have the liquidity to exit, right? If they revalue gold at a lower valuation, which is possible, it is definitely possible. Anybody who says it's not, that makes me think it is even more. But if they do that, or they start selling gold, I mean, selling gold will push the price down. Revaluing gold, I think temporarily will push the price down. Buying Bitcoin and not buying more gold will push the price down of gold. And so that would just tell me that people just outplay their hand. They just outplay their hand because currencies are constantly changing valuation for the history of time. And so while gold may not be the thing right now, and Bitcoin is, maybe gold comes back in 100 years or 50 years or 20 years or 10 years or whatever. But right now, it's about Bitcoin. It's about crypto. It's about DeFi. That's the bottom line. And that is where the world is moving. And so even Mike Novogratz, a lot of people don't agree with a lot of what he says because of his shilling of coins that failed during the previous cycle. But at the end of the day, not every trade is going to be good. Not every bet is going to be good. You can't go to the casino and expect to win 100% of the time or even 75% of the time, right? You're more like a 50-50, if even that. And so he's still a billionaire. He still has a company that's acquiring Bitcoin a very large quantity. And so let's listen to what he says here about Bitcoin hitting $1 million. And by the way, surpassing gold. This is the constant narrative. Gold, 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 Bitcoin. Let's listen in.
You know, sure enough, here we are.
Yeah, listen, we had a euphoric top right around the inauguration, and you know, a combination of a lot of things.
2024.
And whatnot. People say, okay, and crypto went back and tested where the the election breakout was. Now it looks like we'll take out 106, 107, 108, and make the next leg to 130, 150. And at that point, you're in price discovery, right? I keep thinking gold's a $22 trillion asset and crypto's a $2 trillion asset. And at one point, as more and more young people inherit the money for their old people that, you know, kiss the face of God, you know, you're going to see crypto equal gold. And that's a long way.
You know, sure enough.
And this is very interesting because we are seeing the wealth transfer, right? A lot of the older generation, they're not giving their kids anything until they, as he says. But then once they think about it, right? If you're 20s, 30s, 40s, and you get this big chunk of money and you got to invest it in something, and you're hearing all this stuff, and you maybe have been doing research on crypto and Bitcoin, right? And you see all the billionaires doing this. Where are they going to put their money? And this is going to be happening over the course of the next 10, 15, 20 years. And so this is going to be a constant climb up. I'm not saying that Bitcoin is going to not hit $1 million. I just think it's going to take a little bit longer than most people anticipate. And I don't think it's going to happen this cycle. It could. It definitely could, especially if the US starts buying Bitcoin, because it's going to force other countries to do the same thing. And then people are going to follow. But I remind you, that is exit liquidity. Either you jump on the exit liquidity when it's there, or you enter the bear market and it's not there. And you get much lower prices, much lower volume. Guys, I've been in the stock market in low volume stocks, even like pretty big stocks, and they just have low volume. And anytime you put in an order, the price moves again. You put in another order, price moves again. Like, you can't get the order filled. Nobody's on the other end buying. And once you're in a bear market, there is nobody on the other end buying, except for people like you and I who sold at the top and are waiting for the bottom to buy. And who are you going to be buying it from? People who bought at the top. That's how the cycles work. That's just how the cycles operate. And so another indicator of where this is all going, right, was this conversation and the stage. I think there's a consensus just in the last couple of weeks. And you can see Trump Jr. is up here. Chainlink's Sergey, World Liberty Finance co-founder Zach Folkman. And they say Chainlink is absolutely critical to merging DeFi and TradFi. To that end, the USD1 token is now a bridgeable across chain. And by the way, it's kind of ironic that Charles is leading this discussion, and they're talking about interoperability when Cardano doesn't really have any, or at least any that anybody uses. And it doesn't have any bridges, even to Ethereum or Chainlink, which is absurd because Cardano I remember reporting about this back in 2020, 2021, 2022, that Chainlink and Cardano are talking about a partnership, and every other blockchain has done this, except for Cardano, right? Cardano is not on any Ethereum bridge. It's not interconnected with any of the Ethereum DeFi. And the only comments I get on this is Cryptoviser, Cardano does have bridges, but they're Cardano bridges. They're not interoperable with Ethereum bridges, with Chainlink bridges, or with just bridges to the rest of the ecosystem. And so you have to identify like which cryptos, which blockchains are going to be integrated in TradFi. Chainlink, obviously. Ondo, obviously. Ethereum, obviously. Aave, obviously. And the reason I'm saying obviously is because this is what World Liberty Finance is investing in. And again, World Liberty Finance is connected with the president's family. The president is the president, and we have Howard Lutnick, who's a commerce secretary, very bullish on crypto, moving away from his company so there's no conflicts of interest. We have banks getting involved, hedge funds talking about revaluing gold. Like, you guys see where this is going? And so, yeah, what they're talking about here is critical, right? Bridgeable across chain, bridgeable into TradFi, regulated, secure. Let's listen in. But yeah, very ironic that Charles is leading that discussion, and they don't even have interoperability. It's so frustrating. I would imagine more frustrating for Cardano holders, because I haven't been a Cardano holder since I sold, effectively. And I would imagine the Cardano ecosystem, they should be pretty upset with this, that there's no USDC integration, no Tether integration, no interoperability with Chainlink, Ethereum, Solana. Like, we're in 2025 already, guys. Anyway, let's continue listening in.
Chainlink is absolutely critical to merging traditional finance and decentralized finance, which has been our mission at World Liberty Financial ever since the start. We don't see a world where DeFi exists in its own ecosystem and traditional finance carries on, but we believe in a very short amount of time that they will, in fact, merge and just be the future of finance. So to that end, World Liberty Financial, our USD1 token, is now bridgeable across chain, thanks to the incredible people at CCIP, which have enabled this cross-chain compatibility. Currently, yep.
Great job. And by the way, let's just be clear. Chainlink has always been the oracle for all the ecosystems, right? It is the chain that is connecting all of them. This has been their mission. And, over the last few years, people were like, what is Chainlink doing? But at the end of the day, the technology works. What Chainlink set out to do, they focus pinpoint focus on interoperability, and they're there. And this is what World Liberty Finance is doing. It's not about hype. It's not about pumping your bag. This is about merging TradFi and DeFi. And the only way you do that is with technologies that work, technologies that are open, technologies that are being developed, and technologies that people are using. Again, very ironic, this setup here. But maybe Cardano's work, maybe Charles talked to them and said, listen, let's do this. But it's not about talking, it's about doing. And that's what we're looking at in crypto. Which ecosystems are going to be around in 5 years? Which ones have accomplished what they have set out to do? Maybe not completed it, but they've set out to what they wanted to do. Bitcoin has done that. Think about where Bitcoin is. Ethereum has done that. Granted, Ethereum, not everything is perfect on Ethereum, not everything's perfect on Bitcoin. But Ethereum does DeFi very well. Ethereum does interoperability very well. Layer 2s, very well. Usage, very well. Is there competition? Sure. But they've done it very well, right? XRP, they're going for cross-border payments and kind of be a payment rail on the back end. They've been pinpoint focused on that for years, and they're doing it, right? Solana, they wanted to fix a lot of the issues that Layer 2s have and Ethereum had. They did it, right? I'm not saying Solana doesn't have its issues, but they focused and they accomplished. They've accomplished a lot more than many of the other chains have that have been around for years. Dogecoin hasn't really done anything, right? Cardano, not really where it needs to be from what they set out to accomplish. Sui, they're getting there, right? They're trying to accomplish a lot of what these other chains cannot. And then Chainlink, right? So we have to look for where the winners are. Is it going to be MicroStrategy? Is it going to be MetaPlanet? Is it going to be Bitcoin? We cannot win 100% of the time. And we can't, you may say, listen, I think MetaPlanet is the best investment, and maybe it turns out to be like the second or third best investment. But did you do well? I think that's really what it comes down to. And that's kind of what I'm looking at. It seems like something's about to pop in the market, that we are going to see some upside in the market. But I also think that this is the exit liquidity for the majority of people. And once that initial flow comes in, it's going to slow down, right? Because a lot of companies and countries, they're going to want to wait and see how this all plays out. But there's a few caveats. One of those we talked about, potentially the revaluation of gold and the buying of Bitcoin by the government. If this happens, basically everything else that we talked about is off the table, and we're potentially going to go much, much higher for much, much longer. But I remind you, this is focused on Bitcoin, no other coins. Maybe Ethereum, maybe Chainlink and Ondo, but they're really looking at the technology of Chainlink, not the coin or the valuation of Chainlink. But the coin and the valuation of Chainlink will improve over the course of time, in my view, if the technology continues to grow and get more expansion and more usage from all of these chains. And as those chains are starting to use more, right, the more DeFi that you use on Ethereum or on Ondo, and it's connected to Chainlink, which is also part of those DeFi transactions, this makes all the ecosystems do much better. And so that's where we have to look at. Is the bull run almost over? Well, like I said at the beginning, the further we go, the closer we are. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. While you're down there, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Check out my other videos on the channel. We have long form videos, some shorter form videos, and we do some deep dives into cryptos as well. I'll see you guys on the next video. Invest responsibly and crypto on.